Welcome to Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue right here exclusively on malcolmpresents.com. This is Malcolm Berman with Deborah Manning.
Good afternoon, Malcolm. How are you today?
Fine. How are you?
Good. Always a pleasure to be on Malcolm Presents. And I must say that if there are viewers that are coming in and taking a quick look at some of the other programs as well. They're excellent. They're everyday people who have expertise in various areas. And it's really quite refreshing, to be very honest with you, to be able to listen to ordinary folks that have good expertise in various areas. You can sure learn a lot. You really can. So,
well, Malcolm Presents, it's a new .com is a new internet platform, which we have, I don't know, 7, 8 shows. We have some old shows that we replay, but basically it's almost a new show each day. So, and it's on demand, so you don't have to be in front of your computer at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. You could wake up in the middle of the night because you can't sleep at 3 o'clock. What the hell do I do at 3 o'clock? Turn on your computer, go to malcolmpresents.com and be entertained.
Well, I could really recommend it. I'm an ex-news reporter out of Los Angeles, worked for Cap Cities, PBS, NPR, a whole variety of entities before I decided to step out and became, of all things, a loan officer and went into business, got my MBA at Pepperdine University. But I have to say that the quality of the conversations, excellent. So don't miss out on it, folks. You don't have to worry about any of the other ones. They're excellent programming.
Yeah, what I was complimented by one of my shows, when he said, you're a communicator. I mean, I don't think I'm an expert on anything per se, but I know how to talk and I know how to get people out of themselves. So I said, your expertise is you're a communicator. Anyway, talking about communicating, before the show, we were talking about the stock market.
Yeah, well, what's been very interesting is that I moved with my husband back here to South Carolina. I'm a native Californian and moved back here about 6 years ago because, frankly, I couldn't afford the prices in California. Since that period of time, I've started to dabble back into the stock market. My late husband and I had a radio program that Malcolm and he produced for us called Real Money. And it was an interesting program because money is kind of like the one thing you don't talk about for some strange oddball reason. But let's get back to today. Once again, the Russian situation in Ukraine is impacting the stock market, and I think overly impacting the stock market right now. In fact, yesterday, the Dow went down over 600 points. Today, it's down a couple hundred points, and it continues, especially and the NASDAQ. NASDAQ, of course, is the big techs. That's the Apples, the Googles, the Amazons, Facebook, now known as Meta. And it's just absolutely devastating the stock value. What does that have to do with the quality of the companies? Well, in a couple of cases, it doesn't. It's at this point right now, I'm doing a little bit of picking, and I sold most all of my stock at the end of the year. The reason I did it was I was a little concerned about the overall inflation, the COVID mandates, the vaccine mandates, and I was also very concerned about the situation in Russia with the Ukraine. So once again, I've dabbled back in. I look at companies on an individual basis. And a lot of people ask me, well, how do you make some stock picks? Let me tell you, folks, you need to go ahead, look at what the news is doing, and think about carefully about where things are going. We're in a reopening trade right now. And in a reopening trade, it means that there's going to be more demand in terms of gas and oil, for example. So when you buy a Chevron, you've got a great dividend coming in from Chevron, $1.43 per share. And it makes an awful lot of sense. I'm looking for low debt, and I'm also looking for good, solid profit margins. So I've dipped back into Chevron. I dipped into Microsoft for a day, picked up $150 before I went ahead and sold. And it's not that I have a lot of money. For heaven's sakes, I don't have a lot of money. But the crazy thing about it is is that many of these stock platforms, for example, Fidelity or TD Ameritrade, you can go ahead and buy fractions of stocks. So if you like Amazon, for example, you can buy a sliver of Amazon or a sliver of Tesla. And it's kind of interesting. You're buying into American companies and also international companies. So once again, I wouldn't be afraid. I wouldn't certainly would not put your entire savings into it, but you can. The advent now of stock trading on the internet has really opened up many avenues. And I know for me, I'm not married to any of these particular stocks. I take my profits. I will pay my capital gains at the end of the year, and I go from there. So at any rate.
Well, question for you. We were talking about, you had a stock for a week or 2 weeks and you sold it. Do you have to pay more on taxes if you own it less than a year?
Yeah, absolutely.
How much is that? What's the difference?
Anywhere at this point right now, under the Trump tax, you're looking at 20%. It may go up to 24 or 30%. However, if you choose things carefully and you don't get greedy, I know I've averaged about 15% for the past year, and the year before that about 20%. So I'm once again, I play small ball here. If I get $100, if I get $50, once again, I'm going to go ahead and take some profit. And I know that, some of the CPAs out there will say, oh my gosh, why is she paying the extra in taxes? Well, I know that if I put it into a savings account with a bank, you realize that you're getting 0.01% in terms of interest. And I know there's risk. There's no doubt that there's risk, but there's all kinds of ways that you can protect yourself with stop orders and all kinds of things to be able to alert you if there is a difficulty with the stock. So I don't know. Once again, I'm not a multi-billionaire, but I do suggest, if you got maybe $500 or $600, even $1,000, you'd be surprised as to what you can get. Really could be.
I think I told you in a previous show. Mm-hmm. Problem with the market, number one, I don't understand it because sometimes it has nothing to do with the company itself. Whether the company is solid, whether they made a profit, or it has to do with what's happening in the world, as you say, what's happening with Russia right now, or what's going to happen with North Korea, or what's going to happen in China. We have no control. So I almost rather, put $20 on a horse that's 10 to 1.
Well, you can also
in 2 minutes I know what's happening.
I understand that, but you can also, for example, get into exchange fund traded ETFs, exchange traded funds, and that has a whole basket of stocks. So in other words, if you think technology is going to do well, you can go ahead and invest there. At this point right now, with the supply chain being the way it is, it's starting to finally start to loosen up. Our difficulty at this point right now is because of the loose money that the Feds have been printing dollar after dollar after dollar. The problem is that there's a lot of dollars out there and it's chasing very few goods. And at this point right now, the latest consumer figures came out in terms of consumer spending. It was up 3.1%, but guess what? It was not necessarily coming from cash and savings. It was coming from people's credit cards. So that's another little thing to be able to chat about. For heaven's sakes, folks, please start to pay down those credit cards. Get rid of those small balances first, and then work on your next balances. I know that's what my husband and I are doing right now because there's some interesting things that are starting to happen. I think this inflation, I think that's very serious. I think that the inflation situation is really starting to eat into people's real wages. So while wages may have gone up to 6%, you're looking at inflation at 7.9, 7.8, and they're anticipating it going up to maybe 8, 9, or 10%. So protect yourself. That's what we need to do. And that's one of the reasons I like talking to people like you, Malcolm, because I'm hoping to be able to reach out to the folks that are fearful about what's going on with the economy. You don't have to be fearful. You just have to be careful, and you have to protect your family. And that's some of the ways you protect your family.
Well, yeah, I mean, the problem is also isn't the credit, if the Fed increases the interest rate, doesn't the bank increase their interest rate also on the credit cards?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I would go through each one of your credit cards, and I would talk to the creditors and see if you can get a decrease on your credit card interest rate. I've gone through each one of mine, and one of mine, I was able to get a 9.99% interest rate on the balance.
What was it reduced from?
Pardon me?
What was it reduced from?
From about 28%.
Wow.
And the reason that they were willing to do that was that they felt that I was a good credit risk. They could see that I had paid payments on a regular basis, not just the minimum. I'd give always a little bit of extra. And they said, okay, fine. We don't want you doing any of these balance transfers, so we'll reduce your interest rate down to this 9.9 for a 6-month period of time. Incidentally, that credit card will be paid off in a 6-month period of time.
So, this is a tip to a lot of people, and a lot of people might know it anyway. Never take no for an answer.
Absolutely.
It's like the first stage when you call something up and you speak to someone and they said, no, we can't do that, it's impossible. Ask for their supervisor. Because people at that stage, they're right, they can't do anything because they don't have the power.
That's right.
But when you go to higher up in the hierarchy of management, some people have the power. So you have to.
And sometimes the customer service people don't know that they have power. If you become best friends with that customer service agent, it's really remarkable. I became best friends with this particular credit card agent, and I kind of mused around and said, well, I guess you can't reduce the interest rate or blah, 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 blah. And after we talked about her kids and we talked about COVID and talked about all these various things, all of a sudden she went, wait a minute, of course I can. I said, you can? Now, I'm not play acting here, but I think it's important, especially now, especially after this pandemic, people need to be able to connect with one another. And even though it's a customer service rep from a major credit card company, they appreciate it. And I told her, thank you for being there and working. Thank you for helping me out. I really, really appreciate it. And you know what? Those surveys that they sometimes ask you to do at the end of the call, do the surveys. If your person has been good, give them a good survey because it does make a difference to them.
Well, there's an old sales techniques, what I do, and I don't know if it's a Yiddish word or not, but it's schmoozing.
Schmoozing. I love it.
If it's not Yiddish, it should be.
I love it.
But schmoozing is when you get down to, be personable, care about another person. Because the problem is a lot of these people that we speak to on the initial calls, they just get people that are angry. Yeah. People are angry and they're yelling and they're screaming and they're blaming them. And these people that we're speaking to basically have no power.
Yeah.
I mean, they're service people. They want to do the best that they can do. It's not their fault. And they're right. They can't do anything, but their superiors might. So you have to speak to them like they're people like us.
Yep.
Not
Absolutely.
like, oh, blah, 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 you son of a.
Absolutely.
And they take a lot of abuse.
Well, I think that at this point right now, I think that there's some good takeaways from this whole COVID pandemic. I know that it's made me far more aware of the people, the essential workers. For example, when I go into a supermarket now, I do take the time, and I know this sounds cornball, but I don't think it is, to thank those people who are stocking the shelves. They seem surprised. And that's a nice surprise to be able to say to somebody, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. And they were like, well, thank you. So I just think that will lower the tone. And if you do it one-on-one, it's really quite amazing what ends up happening. That one-on-one kindness to ensure that people understand that you do appreciate the work that they do, because it certainly is hard work. I know doing retail sales after my husband passed away, I ended up working at, of all places, Kmart and also with Ross. And I was at Kmart. I was the blue plate special lady. So here I am with my advanced education and what have you, doing blue plate specials. And I'm sorry, I'm selling toilet seats. But you know what? There's a lot to be learned by not having your ego involved on some of the things that you do. Because I met some really, really nice people.
There's a critical need of toilet seats.
Absolutely, there was. And it was funny because when my manager came up and said, okay, so because of your broadcast ability, we're going to have you do the blue plate specials. And here's your first one. I went, what the? This is a toilet seat, Richard. He said, that's right. I'll be listening.
Yeah, well, yeah, people don't talk about things like toilet seats or toilet paper. I think in the last year or so, I've seen more and more cute commercials. I don't remember what they were for toilet paper, but they're cute.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the unmentionables.
The unmentionables. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Money and toilet paper, those are some of the unmentionable things and what have you.
These are the sneaky things of prices going up, but you don't notice it. Like with the toilet paper, it's not that the price goes up, it's that there are less sheets in a row.
That's what's happening. And I noticed that, yeah, it's true. And for example, you notice that I'm buying cans of tomato sauce, for example, and it may be down an ounce to 2 ounces. So this whole situation. Hey, Max, this is Max, my littlest cat. Let me introduce you.
Yeah, hasn't he been on?
He's been on a couple of times, but maybe there's some new viewers here. We have the area to be able to adopt animals, and we were able to adopt, I hate to say it, 6 cats, but that's fine. We have the area to be able to do it, and Max was one of our last adoptees, and I'm just happy to be able to give them a good home. And
listen, I'm looking to be adopted and
oh. Well, you're certainly invited to come back here to South Carolina. I know there's a lot of people who say that with South Carolina, it's blah, 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 blah. You and I've had conversations about the New South, and there really is some differences here in the South. I mean, for example, the lieutenant governor of West Virginia, Winsome Sears, first Black lieutenant governor to be elected to the state of Virginia. And the state of Virginia used to be the capital state of the Confederacy. She had some, in fact, I posted on Facebook that she had a saying in her church, and she used it in terms of America. She says that I'm not where I want to be, but I sure as heck am on my way to being better. And I crucified that quote, but she is just a very, very common sense individual. And she expressed that the fact that here she is, a Black woman, and now the lieutenant, second in command in a state that held the Confederacy. So we certainly are not perfect here in America, but we are sure as heck changing. And I think things are getting better. So wait, I don't know how you feel about it.
We're not perfect.
No, only you are, or I am.
That could be the headlines of the New York Times.
That's right.
Manning says we're not perfect. Or I see it on the Fox News, where they get the banner ads after the girls. Deborah Manning, we are not perfect.
But it's been an interesting week because Biden will be speaking. We're at about 3:20 right now, and the president will be speaking at 4 o'clock.
That's the State of the Union today?
No, about the Russian-Ukrainian situation. So what are your thoughts about it? Should we be there? Should we not be there? Should we be sending troops? Should we not be sending troops? Should we be concerned? What do you think?
We should be concerned, but I think we're as long as we're concerned supporting NATO. I don't think we go in as an individual, as the United States, we go under the NATO banner. If
Well,
we
I think that's
if
what
we
I think
send
that's what
troops in.
Putin. I think that's what Putin was most concerned about, is that we would go in under the NATO banner, and of course, Ukraine is not part of NATO.
Right.
I was not aware of this, but I thought that Ukraine, and I think we talked about this last week, that Ukraine was more of a democracy than it is. Apparently, it is not quite the democracy that had been purported before. Apparently, the President Zelensky has rounded up many of his critics, his political critics, and have put them into prison, and have stopped any negativity that is going on criticizing Zelensky.
Well, I don't think there are many countries that are really true democracies. And according to Trump, neither is the United States.
Well,
If you listen to me.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I mean, we have the ability to be able to speak out. I'm very, very concerned about what's going on. This morning at 11 o'clock, the police in Quebec moved in and started arresting the truckers, the Freedom Convoy, and it wasn't particularly pretty. Thank heavens there wasn't any violence involved, but they are arresting them.
Yeah.
I just, it seems very odd to me that Prime Minister Trudeau declared the Emergencies Act, which is pretty crazy to be able to do. He has the ability of now suspending and taking over somebody's bank account, driver's license, rig, blah, blah, blah. And I understand the truckers have been there for a couple of weeks, but it would seem to me perhaps to kind of calm things down again. I would love to have seen the Prime Minister come down and at least talk to the leaders of the truckers convoy. What's wrong with talking?
Well, number one, I think I was raised, I mean, I was, my teenage years and my formative years, in the 60s and the 70s, where we did protesting. It was basically the big ones, of course, it's anti-Vietnam and against segregation. And I'm a believer that you have the right to demonstrate, but if you break the law, they have the right to arrest you. So if I'm demonstrating, if I did a sit-in at a college where I'm blocking up roads and the police come in and says, leave, otherwise you'll be arrested, I'll sit down and, give him my hit, arrest me.
Yeah, get arrested.
Pick me up and take me, which a lot of the students do. I don't see them. I'm not for fighting if the police come and causing a riot. Oh, I want to ask you one question. What do you think of that incident? I'm not sure where it was, where the black and the white teenager got into a fight. I know that the white was a 14-year-old. I'm not sure how old the black teenager was. Did you see that in a shopping mall?
No, I didn't. What exactly happened?
There were, again, a black and a white teenagers got into a scuffle.
Okay.
And two police came. I'm not sure whether it was security or police. They came and they took the black kid and they brought him down, wrestled him down to the floor. And they took the white kid and put him on a chair, or like a chair next to him. Then they took the black kid, they put a knee in his back, and the two of them got to him. And the white kid was sitting down, and then the police came over to him, and he lifted up his hands, like he said, like he was going to be arrested. And the police walked right by him without putting cuffs on him.
That troubles me.
Yeah, I know. Tell me why that was.
That really troubles me. It troubles me as much as our senator here, Tim Scott, said that he had been stopped 7 times by police and by Capitol Police, even though he is a senator. The one thing that I was most upset about was that he didn't report this sooner. I'm astounded at things like that, and I hope it's not true. Did you see the video?
Yeah, it was true.
Terrific. That's not what I want my taxpayer dollars to go to. I'm sorry.
It reminds me of the story I read in this book. Who I know, Lou Gossett Jr.
Yeah.
Lou Gossett Jr. grew up in my neighborhood, and I used to play basketball with him. He's a few years older than I am. But he was talking about how when he first got into Beverly Hills, and he was doing a movie, and I think he was staying at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Yep.
And one night, after dinner, he decided to take a walk.
Mm-hmm.
And he was walking in Beverly Hills, and not in the in the residential district. And I think he was stopped by 3 times by the Beverly Hills cop asking him for ID and everything. So that was sort of like walking while black. And, then he said, I think that same time he had money, he rented out a Mercedes.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills, same. He was pulled over 4 or 5 times.
Examples like that, and I think they're good to be pointed out because that's not the way that I want policing to be done. Period. I'm once again, I'm an independent, but I lean more conservative. However, that is not the way I want policing to be done. And I do think that the combination of just awareness and things are changing and things have got to change. That's not right. And putting manhandling a black teenager and not, treating them the same is just. Well, and I don't know the ins and outs, but just on the face of it, I'm very disappointed. I'm very upset.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Why is black negative?
I don't know.
Why when they say you're in the black,
I don't know.
Why when they say it's a Black Monday?
It's Black, but Black Friday is
Yeah, but that's sales.
Bonanza.
But why when someone says black, it's always a negative type of connotation?
Well, what's really funny? We have 2 black cats, and historically, ASPCA says the black cats are the most difficult to be able to place, and it's very funny. We got Max here because a kid was coming down the street. He had a cat carrier. And I noticed this kid, this is about 1.5 years when we got Max. Max was just a little kitten at the time. And he was going door to door and no one would answer the door, blah, blah, blah. We answered the door. It was interesting because the kid said, I said, can I help you? He says, yes. He says, you have a black cat that's sitting in your window. And I said, yeah. He says, well, my mom won't let me keep this cat. Would you like to take a look at him? And of course, I'm a sucker for a cat, I'll tell you. So sure enough, took the cat on out. Max and I were just like this. My husband came to the door and went, oh no, we can't have another cat. And I said, of course we can have another cat. But the kid said to us, he says, I don't understand why some people don't want a black cat. I don't know why. And I think that once again, more and more awareness and one-on-one talking to people. I told you this, I think it was about 2 shows ago, where I talked with a black employee of Home Depot. And we talked about this situation between blacks and whites. And I said, peace, we got to get this thing taken care of. We cannot be looking at one another and judging each other because I'm white, that I'm evil, that you're black and you're evil. But I think it's going to be happening on a one-on-one basis. That's the way it's going to be changing because we've got to get this change. This country enjoys and embraces people. That's the reason people want to come to the United States, because we enjoy and embrace different peoples of different races and religions. And to demonize anyone, whether they be black or white or Asian or whatever the case may be, is not American. And I lay part of that situation at the feet of the news media right now, and social media.
What I would say is we're living in new times. First of all, we're living in a time of 24/7 news. We're living in an age of not news, it's opinions.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all editorials. You go to most of the stations. I get sick of as you know, I'm a liberal. I get sick of the liberal stations because I tell after the first 2 words that the announcer says, I know what his opinions are.
Yeah.
The way they present the issues. Same way with a conservative.
Yeah, I agree.
All of them, the conservative, all knocking our country, knocking our administration, knocking what's happening.
Yeah.
And the liberal is sort of not necessarily knocking it, but pointing out to the flaws of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody that's pro-American now.
Well, I think there's a lot more pro-Americans than we have any idea. The problem is that people are now fearful for speaking out. I think even a program like this, people could possibly be fearful because they're watching differences of opinions. You know, as I say, I'm an independent, but I go conservative. You're basically an independent, but you go liberal. But we find strength by finding the compromise that we're able to find common ground. And once again, I'm so tired of the opinion. Who the heck cares about what somebody's opinion is? I want the facts so I can decide myself. I know when I was a news reporter, that was one of the reasons that I had to leave the business out of Los Angeles, is that I was being told how to report on a story. And people need to have both sides. They need to have the facts so that they can make a value decision on things. And in many cases, and I get worried, for example, for the 2022 elections, that there will be a swing towards the Republicans. It looks like it's going to be a swing towards the Republicans. But my concern at this point right now is I want to hear policies that are going to benefit Americans, not just one political party. I want policies that are going to benefit all of us. Inflation is not benefiting anybody. These gas prices, we're now up here in South Carolina, we're up to $3.25.
I saw the gas the other day at $5.30. But that's the expensive one. It's generally in the high fours. But anyway, my dear, I think our time is up.
You're kidding.
I wouldn't kid you. The thing is, just a final word. The problem is there's no compromise anymore. Nobody's agreeing. They're both standing off on their individual sides. The left is the left, the right is the right, and no one wants to give anything.
I disagree. And the only reason I disagree is because you and I continue to talk, and we've been doing this for a year and a half, and we do find common ground. I just think that the politicians need to get with it. Both sides need to get with it in terms of what's going on. Reflect the best and the goodwill of the American people, and not to benefit just themselves. They need to benefit the vast majority of Americans.
I know this is impossible, but sometimes I believe, and I forget who did it, a benevolent dictatorship.
Oh.
Under those things, and people might write in, but I think if we have a benevolent dictator, I mean, I don't know the answers. If I knew the answers, I'd run for office. But I think getting involved
locally is extremely important, because they need to be able to hear different voices.
Right.
We'll come back to that strength.
It's being involved. You definitely have to be involved. The problem is most people don't want to be involved.
Well, maybe we can get them to get off their arses.
They can come over to malcolmpresents.com.
That sounds good.
Conversations with Deborah. And if you want to do any conversations, please write us. It's Malcolm Presents. Well, I forget my thing. malcolmpresents@gmail.com.
There we go. All righty. Thanks so much, Malcolm. Wonderful talking with you, and give my best to your wife and your entire family.
Well, have a good week. And I understand I don't know about the weather. I think you might be having crazy weather coming up in South Carolina.
Yeah, well, we'll be fine.
Okay. I'll speak to you next week if you're not blown away.
All right. Bye-bye now.